if you have a job where you're making French fries or making coffee, those smiles matter. The friendliness matters. It really kind of sticks in my craw when I'm ignored by a service provider.
I'm super pumped for this conversation, mostly because I love your energy already, and you've literally said 2 words.
Oh, that's nice. Well, you want energy, you got energy. Caution. Proceed with caution. Now, let's
Yeah.
go, right?
No, I love that. I think for real though, one of the things I love the most about what I've read of your story is how much you embrace what most people would literally run from, and you're using it as like, hey, this is not the worst part of my life, but now I'm using this as a platform to make my life even bigger, even better. So just honor to you for doing that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
two
yeah.
things. Two things. You
Go ahead.
asked on the little get to know you submission thing.
Yeah.
What I don't want to talk about. What I wrote was hat. I hate talking about trans stuff. So that was, I don't know if you could read between those lines. And then
Yes.
it's Fitzness, because nobody can ever pronounce it right. So Fitzness.
Yes. I assume that from your name, and I think it's a great combo you've pulled together there.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are
Yeah.
those are it. Other than that, I'm yours, and we can talk about whatever the heck you want to.
Good. Let's do it. Well, I mean, we can literally jump right in.
All right.
We're good to go as of now.
Okay.
So for sure, like I said, I think to start with is just the thing that I find inspiring is really like your story and kind of what you've gone through, and not using it as an excuse, but more as a platform to now go and help others. So again, honor to you for that. It's awesome. And I really would just love to hear more about the backstory behind that. And like, was that a mindset that you had going in, or is that something you developed kind of going through it?
Yeah, so cancer, not a lot of fun. I give cancer 0 stars. I didn't like it. I didn't want it. I did all the things right in advance to, at least I thought I was, to prevent it from coming. But, um, my cancer diagnosis was very scary. The call I received from the surgeon after finding the lump and having the uh, mammogram and the ultrasound, the biopsy and so forth, he said, Fitz, you indeed do have breast cancer, and it's already in your lymph nodes, several of them, and it's running through you like wildfire. And so we need to treat you urgently and aggressively. And I thought, oh, damn it, I'm going to die for sure. And so that was super scary. Um, and I had to, it's interesting. I was afraid of dying for sure. I'm not one of those people who's like, it's no big deal. I really like it here. I like Earth. I like my life. I like all the people and so forth. But I was really upset about losing my kids' lives, right? So Ginger was 15, Parker was 13, and not being with them was really just agonizing. That was hard. And then I'd say less than a week later, I had an appointment with my new oncologist, who I'm actually going to see today for a follow up. But he said, Fitz, we're going to cure you. He said, it'll be hard, but we're going to cure you. So he gave me good confidence that I wasn't going to die, which was nice. I mean, I wasn't convinced, but I also wasn't
Yeah.
agonizing over that. Now I had to face this experience, right? My schedule would be 15 months of chemotherapy, which FYI is a very long time to have chemo. And I had 33 rounds of radiation, and I had some surgery. And so I just decided that I was gonna keep going and do the things that I could. And so I knew cancer was gonna steal my hair. You know what, Jim? You look so gorgeous with no hair. Like,
Well, thank
guys,
you.
so great with no hair. Damn it, I was gonna lose my hair, but I wasn't gonna let cancer steal my career. And I certainly wasn't can't gonna let cancer steal time with those incredible kids I was so worried about being without, right? So that was a decision I made up front. I guess I'm just kind of defiant in general. And I don't like people telling me what to do. And I don't always go with the flow. And I think that was a good thing. And like stubborn in the best and the worst ways, right? But I decided up front I just was going to keep going. And I boarded over 30 flights out of Gainesville, Florida to go announce races and to go do keynotes. And quite often, like my innards were exploding while I was doing that. It was hard. I'd get on the plane and my husband would ask, he'd drop me off at TSA and he would say, how are you going to do this? And I'd say, I just am. And I can imagine someone out there being like, well, she couldn't have really been that sick if she were getting on planes. No, I was. I'd get off the planes and I would sleep on the hotel bathroom floors. I was violently ill for a very long time, but I was just not gonna let cancer steal my career. I love what I do. I've spent decades building up this brand and the reputation, and those stages that I work on are coveted. There's, a whole list of people who would prefer to take them from me, and I just wasn't gonna let that happen. And so the real saving grace there was those stages were my refuge, no matter how sick I was. When I stepped foot on the stage, put that microphone up to my mouth, everything that was wrong with me disappeared. Being surrounded by these thousands of extraordinary people and serving these wonderful events, I got to be me. Out of my
Right.
15 months of treatment, there were these bright spots of everything being right again, and those were always when I was working. And so yeah, I don't know if that answered your questions, but I made decisions and I stuck to them, and all of the failures that I had leading up to cancer served me well because they taught me how to be gritty. They taught me how to be strong, and therefore I was.
Yeah, I love that. There's two things in that you said that I love the most of all of that. One is your declaration of "I just am," and it's the decision that you made there to not just do it, but like really lean into it, and you're just say, "Hey, I'm gonna grit my way through this no matter what." And I think it's because, like, when you're talking about the thought, right? Going through the thought of losing not just your own life, but the future of your kids and missing out on those opportunities. I think that there's a really big opportunity most people miss is in those moments when you're still physically here, you are mentally not here because now you're already thinking about everything I'm going to miss. So you're losing out on what's already in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. And so the determination to just be present and just grit your way through it, I think is really something that we should highlight there, because that allows you to be present in those moments when, hey, it's not always going to feel good, but
Right.
it allows you to be present and not miss out on the things that you could very easily make an excuse for and sit home and feel sorry for yourself and just accept the fact that, poor me. But you didn't do that. And you made a conscious decision to show up and not miss out on things that you're still here for. So I love that part the most.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, it's interesting. People are really averse to pain, really averse to suffering. And I don't want those things. I certainly didn't sign up like, here, poison me. Um, but we can still function with pain. We
Yeah.
can still function with suffering. Humans are like, oh, I got, ouch, it hurts. I need drugs, right? I need this. I can't come to work. I have a headache. Or you go to work and you figure it out, right? And so that's just kind of how I am. And it's not unempathetic. Boy, am I empathetic because I understand hardship and sickness and difficult situations. But can you, right? So let's say you've broken your leg. Can you still go do certain things? Let's say your kid's life depended on it. We'd all find a way, right? And so you just have to want certain things bad enough. There are sometimes massive hurdles,
Mhm.
and it's incredible how high our little vertical leap can be if we're determined. And so yeah, I chose to do the hard things. I didn't want to do a lot of it, but I knew that in order to survive, I was going to have to do the things that I was afraid of, which are medical things. Trust me, every single time they poked me with a needle, I cried. It might have been 200 needle pokes. I cried every time. Every MRI, there was a claustrophobic freak out, but I learned what I'm capable of, and now my life post cancer is so much better. And I say that I don't ever want anyone to think I'm one of those that are like, thanks, cancer. I'm so glad I had cancer. Because no, I had a great attitude before. I had a commitment to vibrancy and health and joy before. So I didn't need cancer to set me straight. However, going through something like that or any sort of hardship, whether you get hit by a bus or you lose your spouse or you get a divorce, there's all these things that just punch us in the face sometimes. If we don't respond and make our our life better because of them, right? If we don't figure it out and realize
Right.
how precious each moment is and our day, how precious our days are and these opportunities are, then shame on us, right? So I've just, now post cancer, I'm like, okay, game on. Nothing scares me. All I want is fun. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. And it really has opened up the world for success even more so.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it really highlights the the choice that we have there
Yeah.
to really decide like our reality is the result of our decisions. So it's not like, hey, this is a life sentence you just have to submit to, but you get to decide how you're going to show up every day. And sometimes it could be really frustrating, right? Everyone's going to have days where you just don't feel like doing it, or, you have that proverbial bus hitting you,
Yeah.
but you get to decide how you respond, how you react, how you show up. And I think most people miss that. They're victims to circumstance, and they just kind of coast through life, letting life happen to them. But the attitude of really grabbing it by the horns and like taking control of what your life looks and feels like, I love that, and I think you said it really beautifully.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. And, if I were not given such a positive diagnosis and I knew I only had X amount of days left, I would have taken full control of those days too. I still would have gone out and done the things I love to do as much as my health would allow. And yeah, I would have made sure that my funeral was the way I wanted it to be, right? So controlling what you can is always going to be uh, one of the number one rules in my playbook, whether it's good times or bad, whatever you can control, you should, and especially when it comes to your health, you should control as much as you can.
Yeah, I'm curious for drawing a parallel between this experience and long distance running,
Yeah.
which might sound odd, but I am not a runner by nature. And, I think when you're first looking at it, it's like, it's, I would assume, relatively boring, just running. When you're not running away from something or towards something, the process of running in and of itself kind of sucks. But, I think what you get on the outside, or I guess on the end of it, right, the feelings of satisfaction, of accomplishment, all that stuff makes that process really worth it. Because I would tend to imagine during a long distance run, there's a lot of times when you're like, I should stop. Maybe I want to slow down. Maybe this is not for me, right? You go through these thoughts, but when you accomplish it, right, all that pain and the grit that you had to display through that process makes that worth it. Is that right?
Of course, of course. It's funny. My real background as a competitive athlete is I competed as a full contact kickboxer for 10 years. And one of the things I
Oh,
loved most about that was not only was it physical, extremely physical and athletic, but it was a chess match. I love kicking people in the head. And so sure, I was flexible and strong, so I could lift my legs up and pop someone in the face. But the true excitement there was tricking my opponent into leaning their head into my foot. So it created that head on collision. So constant thought. You're constantly moving your head and moving your feet and bobbing and weaving and deciding which strike to throw next. So a mental game. And then when it comes to running, I really thought before I started participating in longer distance sports, like it's just left, right, left, right, left, right. How boring could it be, right? But it's not. It's not. It's this incredible community, and when you line up, there's either nerves or there's excitement. There was a game plan. There's a lot going on in your head. It's incredible to challenge your body to go. Even that first mile is always an accomplishment, and the running community itself is very entertaining. So my very first half marathon I did by accident, which sounds ridiculous. I thought I was doing a relay. So I thought I only had to run 6.5 miles. And I thought, I could do that in my sleep, no problem. Didn't train for it. And then the night before, they said, no, you do it together the whole way. Don't break it in half. And I thought, okay, well, here we go. And when I got to maybe mile 8, and it was the longest I had ever run ever up to that point, I was using the other runners as my distraction. I was watching their outfits. Some were in costumes. Some of them had weird, funny gaits. There was people's conversation. I was eavesdropping. And so it actually is a really entertaining sport. And you're right, the amount of mental fortitude it takes to go from start line to finish line is really one of the greatest challenges within endurance sports, because they're even with our elitist, I say elitist, our fastest athletes, right? The most accomplished athletes, they had considered quitting 5 times in their race when they won. They won the Chicago
Right.
Marathon, but along the way they thought, maybe I should quit. This is not working out. This hurts. And so yeah, there's a lot to go back for. I think most runners, by the time they get to 90% of the way to their finish line, they think, screw this, I'm never doing it again. And as soon as they cross the finish line, get their medal, they think, when can I register again? But yeah, it's that process. It's that this is hard, this hurts, this sucks, but I'm going to keep going. Wow, I did it. Maybe I can do some more. That's a type of behavior that comes with, I think, all sports, that sets people up for life. That's why we have to get all of our kids to play a sport. I have two, and I didn't care what they played. I never cared about them being elite in anything. I just said, you have to play a sport and be a part of a club every year at school. And so that was so they'd learn to be a follower and learn to be a leader and learn to fail with grace and succeed with grace, and push their body, push their mind to the limits. And so, yeah, this marathon or even 5K running community is pretty extraordinary, and those skill sets they learn and those hardships they overcome translate into the rest of their world.
Yeah, I love that. I especially love too how you encourage your kids to go out and do sport, and not just for the sake of being the best,
Yeah.
but I think for going through it and also failing forward.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about is the difference between people who are naturally gifted at a sport. Especially my son is 11, and at this age, there's a lot of parents who are starting to get into this ego and pride fueled, hey, my kid is the best, I'm going to put him on the most elite everything.
Hmm.
And there are some parents who say, hey, go out and have fun, and I want you to do well, but I don't care if you make the all-star team or not. Like, I want you to continue to grow and to learn. And I think at this age, as they're starting to grow through and hit puberty and kind of learn more about their bodies, it changes a lot. And the reason I bring that up is that I think that there's a very big difference between people who are naturally gifted and people who learn grit because they are not naturally gifted, right? Because there comes a point in time when the competition elevates, when you can't rely on talent alone anymore. And the people who've relied on talent for the first 18 years of their life, now suddenly they're equally matched. They've got nothing to fall back on. But the people who were not naturally gifted in the thing, but learned grit through adversity, now have the advantage, right? So I think that there's a really big advantage to teaching your kids to fail forward. So I want to honor you for doing that as well.
Well, I appreciate that. And you used the word gifted a few times. When I was a kid, I was in the gifted program, the enrichment classes for high IQ kids, blah, blah, blah. And there's a real trend where those kids, us kids, fail in the real world because so much comes easy to us, right? There's these natural instincts, and we learn quickly and so forth. So we expect everything to be easy. And then
Right.
when gifted kids hit a roadblock professionally, they don't know how to get through it. And I mean, golly, there's quite a few that I grew up with that have not done well. Not done well. They're just not gritty. They're not scrappy. And yeah, they weren't willing to fight for the things they wanted. Yet the kids that were just in the advanced class because they had good study habits and they practiced and they had good parents, those kids are off doing extraordinary things. So yeah, the gifts that we're born with aren't necessarily the most important factors, for sure.
Yeah. How do you juggle that as a parent? Because, I would tend to imagine as a parent, you want the best for your kid. You want them to be happy. You want them to be the most successful they can be. But at the same time, you don't want to spoon feed them, because then they don't learn adversity. They don't learn character. They don't learn those things.
Right.
So as a parent, how do you juggle that mentally, where you kind of have to take a step back and say, hey, I'm going to let you go out there and I'm going to let you fail. I'm not going to let you, totally explode, but you're going to have to struggle without me holding your hand the whole way.
Yeah, so family motto is perfect's boring. So we don't expect anything. Joy is top priority here. Health. And of course, I encourage them to try new things. But the rule is you play. That's it. You play. You get the exercise. You be a part of the team. It's so funny when Ginger, oh, she's so smart. She was in the first grade spelling bee. Now, mind you, I won my first grade spelling bee, so I set that bar really high. But she was in the spelling bee, and I picked her up after school. And because of my career being very flexible, I was fortunate to be able to drop my kids off every morning and pick them up every day at the end. And I get her, and she's kind of off. I was like, "Hey, Bean," ticker tape parade every time my kids walked out of the building. She seemed off. So I get her in the car. And the second she gets in the car, she just bursts into tears. She's hysterical, crying. What's going on? And she was devastated by the loss of the spelling bee. She came in second place, and she just could. She didn't even cry in front of her friends. She just came out, and then she threw up in my car. And then when she threw up in the car, I thought, okay, this is unacceptable. She needs to learn how to lose. So it was at that point I signed her up for a soccer team. It's like, okay, we're going to go play soccer. She's going to learn to lose. And that was my main focus. If we run the worst team in the league, awesome. I was like, they need to practice losing. Well, these two Kenyan brothers were on our team. And so we slaughtered everybody, like 11 or 15 to nothing. That whole little season, I was so mad. I was like, they got to lose. Thankfully, the next season, she played on a team called the Tsunamis. And the Tsunamis won 0 games. And we celebrated the final game of the season, which was a tie. But yeah, you got to put them in places to fail. And you got to be able to get over it, right? Fail,
Yeah.
fail, fail. And you can walk away from a losing match of any sport with a smile on your face. You're doing the right thing. It's also really important to have a passion and want something really bad. My son's an actor now. My daughter, she's chosen to be a sex educator. And man, they both work hard because they're in love with those specific things. So I don't need them to be great at everything. I just want them to pursue their passion and, in that category, have the greatest skills they could possibly do and tenacity, you know?
Yeah.
And-
You highlighted something interesting too that I've noticed with my own kids in that conversation, because I would tend to imagine you probably didn't drop your daughter off at school that day and put pressure on her to be number one,
No, no,
right?
no.
But there was still this pressure that
Mhm.
they had this expectation, hey, I'm going to let mom or dad down. And I think about it because even with my own kids, I very much make a conscious effort to not put that level of pressure on whatever the outcome is or whatever the conversation is. But I'll notice with them, they have this feeling of, hey, I didn't do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to let you down. I'm going to make you upset, or, this built-in tendency to want to please and want the
Sure.
approval,
Yeah.
even though I say, hey, I love you no matter what you do. I don't care if you come in last place, just go out there and do it.
Do your best, whatever it is.
Right. But how do you have that conversation? Is it a certain amount of humility? Do you have to force the conversation to really remind them, hey, no matter what you do, I'm going to love you regardless. Just go out there and do your best. Like, how do you encourage that in a kid?
I mean, I got to tell you, my kids are the most loved entities on earth. I'm the good morning kisses. They're how old? Parker's 19. Ginger just turned 22. When they're in my house, I still sing to them every night. They have a nighttime song. I so adore them for everything. And yeah, I mean, I fail too. I think it's important to demonstrate failure and disappointment to my kids. And, if somebody, maybe I'm negotiating a speaker contract or a race contract, things don't go my way, I let them know. And boy, have I failed a lot. My failures are the things that really allowed me to achieve some greatness in certain categories. So I do some bragging about my failures. In fact, as a speaker, I have a whole presentation I do to college students. And I just brag about my failures. I say, hey, listen, you can look me up. If you want to see what I'm good at, there's plenty of evidence online. But I'm going to tell you about my failures so you can learn from them and you just won't repeat my mistakes. You go and make your own stupid mistakes, right? Just don't make mine. So, yeah, I mean, we've just not set a precedence on perfection ever. And, when they were students, my kids are highly intelligent. That's a great gift. They're so smart. But when my daughter got into high school, she started slacking a little bit on her homework. And I'm a University of Florida graduate, and UF is here in Gainesville, where we live. UF is they call it now the first public Ivy League school. It is nightmarish to get into Florida, and The academics there are superior, right? But you have to be close to perfect to get in. And so I remember just saying, Ginger, just do your homework. You don't if you want to go to Florida, fine. If you want to go anywhere else, fine. Go be a Seminole or go be a volunteer. It doesn't matter to me. You go where you want to go. But I want you to have the option, whether it's Florida or Hawaii or Harvard. Just set yourself up so when you become a junior, you'll have choices. That's the thing. It's just give it your best. If your best
Right.
is a 2.7 GPA, okay, disappointing, fine, but just do your best so you have choices. That's really where I steer them is don't screw yourself out of opportunity by being a slacker.
Yeah. So, and you really don't want to have to live with that regret of I should have. Right.
Right, right, right. So she is a Gator, by the way. She got in.
Nice.
I'm very
Congratulations.
pleased. But that was her choice, not mine.
Good. But I think that's a really good point in that you don't want to have to live with the regret of, man, if only I had tried or made an effort or took the attempt.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of fear that happens sometimes that we have to get over. Either again, fear that we're going to disappoint somebody or let them down, or we need their approval, or even their permission to go out and try. So, I think it's really good encouragement for people to just go do the thing and just say, hey, I don't know how, but I just am. I love that to tie it all back together. I think the determination of saying, I just am, it's really that simple, right? It doesn't matter how. How wasn't considered. It
Right.
was the decision of I just am.
Right. Figure it out. That professionally, that has really gone a long way for me. Is I when opportunities come my way, if they look like good opportunities, I say yes first, and then I figure it out. And the other component to that is I'm willing to bust my butt. I mean, I work hard. I work hard. I am committed to the thing that I do. I'm committed to serving people with excellence, and I will do whatever it takes to hit it out of the park every single time. And that's really what I want for my kids is okay, you choose. But then once you've committed to something, give it your all. And hopefully, I mean, golly, if everybody's on that same page, we're going to have the best sandwiches at the sandwich shop, right? We're going to have the best coffee, and our accountant's going to make sure he or she doesn't miss anything when doing our taxes. It's just if we're all committed to doing our best in the place we are, things look really good.
Yeah. I think that brings up an interesting thought is, does it matter? And I mean that from the perspective of if I work in a coffee shop and all my job is to make coffee for other people, does it really matter? The answer to me would be yes. First of all, if you're going to do something, do it right, do it with integrity. And second of all, you have no freaking clue if that cup of coffee that you put a little extra love and care into could change somebody's day and really change the trajectory of their life. Right? I don't want to put too much pressure on a cup of coffee,
Right.
but point being, if you show up in excellence in all the things that you do, the ripple effect that it will have on other people's lives is unimaginable. And I think that there's a lot of people who are showing up every day and just going through the motion or checking the box because they don't understand how much it matters to show up in the area that you can show up, right? And even no matter what your profession is, I think people tend to think maybe it's not as important or as prestigious as a doctor or a lawyer, or just because I chose this profession means I'm going to have less impact in the world, right?
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, it's just simple things. When I show up at a restaurant, maybe I'm walking into McDonald's for a Diet Coke, which I love my Diet Coke. But if they don't say hi to me, I feel like, why would you not say hi? Why would you not be warm when somebody is showing up to? You're a service provider, right? So I do things. It's the small things that count. It's the if you have a job where you're making French fries or making coffee, those smiles matter. The friendliness matters. It really kind of sticks in my craw when I'm ignored by a service provider. I feel like why can't you be nice? Really, when it comes to the doctors and lawyers, we're trying not to work with them, right? We don't want to be sick. We don't want to have to go see the doctor. We don't certainly don't want to have to deal with a lawyer, right? Who wants that? And so it's very important that those people are meticulous with their behavior. But we're not exposed to them as often as we are the people that are pouring the coffee. So yeah, just do your best. And here's the other thing. It's one thing to be knowledgeable and experienced and have great skills, but it's also important to be delightful, right? You're
Yeah.
on the job. If you're on the job, your private crap has no place inside the walls of that business. That's actually one of the things I tell the students I speak to at universities is just like, okay, you're gonna choose the field. You're gonna learn as much as you can. You're gonna be as practice as much as you can. You're gonna show up early. You're gonna stay late. You're gonna work the hardest. You're gonna dress professionally. You're gonna clean up your language, right? But if you're stuck in a traffic jam and you get to the workplace and all you can do is bitch and moan about the traffic jam, you are bringing absolutely everybody around you down. You have a role there, and it's not to complain about your personal issues. So it's okay to have friends. Maybe that's outside coworkers agreeing we are going to go to coffee and we're going to vent about our private life. That's fine. But when you are in the scope of your actual profession, should not be doing stuff like that. You should be an uplifting person. And I think I'm damn good at what I do. My skills are top notch and I work hard and I'm very meticulous and prepared. However, I'm delightful. I show up and I make everybody feel like a superstar around me. That could be why I get brought back so often, is because I genuinely care about my colleagues and the people we serve, and I make them feel good. And so that is an important part of business that I think goes just ignored, is being delightful, making the people around you feel better than more good than bad. And they may just want to have you around, even if you're not as good at math, or even if you're not as good as computer programming, whatever it is. If you're delightful, they may have a hard time getting rid of you. They may even give you a raise because you're so freaking nice. So yeah, those things go a long way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, I say a lot that people have four basic needs to feel loved, appreciated, seen, and heard. And I feel like when you show up as a delightful person and you make the people around you feel that way, it creates this connection, this bond that they want more of that. And I think it's partly because most people don't get it enough from other areas in their life.
Yeah.
But the other part I think, which is amazing, which you highlighted really well there, is it doesn't require any special talent. You don't have to be magically gifted
Yeah.
to just put in a little effort to make the people around you feel loved, appreciated, seen, and heard.
Yeah.
But I think the challenge there is you yourself generally need to feel it first before you can effectively show up for other people, right? So would you say that there's a large part of that you have to do the work on yourself first?
So here's the deal is internal joy is very important for health, for personal health. And I'm fortunate that I'm a joy addict. I was born this way. I just need to be happy. I need to project joy. It's who I am. However, it's a skill. It's a skill that you can practice. Crappy night's sleep, traffic jam, you show up and say, "Good morning, everybody. We're going to have a great day." This is a habit you can build and grow into and turn yourself into a more joyful person, or at least turn yourself into somebody people perceive as a joyful person. I mean, those scripts, right? So maybe yeah, Brad Pitt shows up and he reads a script about fighting Nazis, right? He's saying the words. Anybody could show up and say the words of a happy person at work, right? You can just be nice. You can force it out of your mouth. Eventually, it'll become ingrained in you. Eventually, you are naturally going to be like, "Hey, Skipper, how's it going?" There's going to be a little spring in your step because that's who you're practicing being. And so, yeah, if you're a grumpy Gus, I get it. That's no fun. But you can become somebody else, at least temporarily. And I think professionally, it's the right thing to do. I think showing up miserable or unpleasant is just not fair to the workplace. And more importantly, it'll screw you out of a good job, right? And people really have a hard time firing the nice guy. Nobody wants to fire Hank in accounting because he's so great, right? We want to keep that great guy on the team. You might not fire that guy. You might figure a way to work
Right.
with him, even if he's not the best accountant, if he's delightful. So important part. And the same thing goes for your personal relationships, right? If you're always the negative one, dragging people down, you might not continue on with those relationships for very long. So
Yeah. And I think it also ties back to what we talked about before about your choices determine your reality.
Yeah.
Because if you choose to be happy and positive and have the positive outlook on life, how much better will your reality be? Because now you're looking for things to be grateful for. You're looking for things to be happy about.
That's right.
And you get to choose. When you wake up in the morning, you get to choose if you're going to have a good day or a bad day. Like, there's going to be bad crap that happens.
Yeah.
But you can decide if it's a bad 10 minutes or a bad day, right? That decision is solely up to you.
So 100%. It's funny. One of the things that I used to carry with me during cancer is something that I would have before I was diagnosed. I would say it's not cancer. And so traffic jam, red wine on the carpet, whatever. I'd say it's not cancer. I just get past whatever it was. Right. And then all of a sudden it was cancer. And I thought, oh, damn it. Is this my time to freak out? Am I supposed to completely melt down? Because now it finally is the thing that I was saying it wasn't. And then what I thought instantly, well, sure, it's cancer, but I'm not a baby with cancer. I'm not a kid. It's not my kid with cancer. And so I was constantly looking for the bright side. It's that perspective. It could always be worse. And that really lifted me up. Now, did I cry? I cried probably every day for 15 months. It was unbearable stress and hardship. And, my body was just being obliterated. My fingernails were ripping off. I had no lashes. I was gray. I was just, it's hard to describe what it's like to go through those treatment. Yet my attitude was, okay, I will get it out. I would go in my bathroom or I'd go in the car, I'd go alone somewhere and I would just boo-hoo. I would just get it out for 15 minutes. And then I'd put on my big girl panties and I'd get on with it. And so I'm no Queen of England. I just made this choice that this can't be my whole day. I can feel it. I can get it out. And now let me go hunt down something positive. Sometimes something positive was just a nap, right? Just go and have a nap and get a little rest. But yeah, we have choices, and so things go wrong. It's true. Can we put them into space? It's funny. So my podcast, the Fitzness Show, was talking a lot about this stuff a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And one of the things I said is how if I came home and my house had burned down, I would be the most weird house burning down person ever, because as long as my humans and my dogs were out in front, I'd be cheerleading, right? I'd get out the cheerleading outfit and I'd do the hooray, my house is burning down. And because it's just stuff. It's just stuff. And when I was going through treatment, I would look around my office here and I think, well, gee whiz, once I die, all this stuff is garbage. Like you get a real perspective on what matters, right? And so I say this on my podcast, how lucky would I be for my house to burn down if all my people were out there? And then the California fires started a couple days later. And of course, it's sad. It's so sad to see people lose their homes. And then I thought, gosh, someone's going to listen to my podcast, get really angry at me for saying that. But then I stand by it. I mean, they can be angry all they want, but I mean it. It's just stuff. My walls are replaceable. My chair is replaceable. And all the things inside this home are replaceable. And so that perspective does make all of my days better. And so I hope that those poor people who dealt with those horrible fires, I hope that they were also able to look around at their loved ones and be grateful that it could have been much worse, and maybe become hopeful that there's something really cool around the corner. Maybe this was the fork in the road that will lead to something even better.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, because just this morning I shared on my story 3 years ago. It was actually 3 years ago yesterday, but I saw the picture because I took the picture the day after. We are partners in a restaurant. 3 years ago, there was a fire in the restaurant and basically total loss, had to rebuild the entire thing. And, I saw the picture of it this morning and thought, man, I remember 3 years ago how it sucked, right? The feeling of, man, this sucks, but the confidence of knowing that it would be back better than it was before. And now here we are 3 years later, and it's back better than it was before. The
Awesome.
business is doing better. There are people that we love who are employed there. There are people that we serve there. There's now so many memories that encapsulate the history of what was. And it's interesting to look back on things that in the moment felt like a tremendous loss.
Right.
How eventually, as long as you keep moving forward, they turn into something that was greater than what you lost. Right? But I think you have to keep that perspective. And I do believe if you continue to look backward and look for that perspective, it builds this memory, this muscle memory for you that when you now experience another devastating loss,
Yeah.
right, you get out the cheerleader outfit because you understand the perspective of, hey, I know what I lost and I know what I still have.
Right.
Right. And even though it sucks, right, we can't take the suck away. It gives you perspective with which to understand it all, right? And to be grateful for the things that you still have.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny. Last about a year and a half ago, we got T-boned and just total car whatever. We lost a great car, and but we were okay. I was like, it never even phased me. I'm not a super rich girl or whatever. A car is a lot of money, but I have insurance. I was like, wow. We walked away from that. It's a great day. I had zero time to mourn a vehicle. It's just a car. It's just
Yeah.
stuff. All of it is just stuff. I think that would help a lot of people function a lot better if they had that attitude. I mean, what do I know? I have my very strong opinions, obviously, but congratulations on rebuilding from your fire, and I'm sure that restaurant is way cooler than it was 3 years ago.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot. We've done a very intentional job of remembering the history of everything, right? There's like the tradition of aggrandizing your losses by highlighting them. And I think you do a very beautiful job of doing that as well. It's not this thing that you forget ever existed and you run away from, but you incorporate it as a beautiful part of your story and now use it as like a jump off point to say, yeah, but now look,
Yeah.
right? And I think that gives a lot of people the hope that they need to be able to move forward in their own story, right? Because all of us have these moments and they're not going to be a fire. They're not going to be cancer. They're going to be whatever your thing is,
Right.
right? But you can't use it as this excuse to say, I give up. That's it. It's all over. You make the decision to do what you did and say, I just am,
I
right? You're going
just
to use it as a point that's going to be an amazing story at some point later on.
I guess. Yeah, yeah. So I got to pause for a second to tell you, you have such a fantastic vocabulary. I love all the big words you use. I'm a
Thank
huge
you.
fan of that
Thank
vocabulary,
you.
and you're an eloquent speaker too. You don't use the word like all the time, or I, or well
Thank
spoken,
you.
Jim.
I appreciate that.
Of course.
But yeah, I think just to loop that back around, I really do think it builds this history. Even this morning, a little insider secret here, I started out the day a little frustrated by some things that were going on in the business. And I did not necessarily, and don't think this person has nothing to do with you. I was not in the mood to have this conversation.
Totally
I
get
just
it.
wasn't in the mental space to say, hey, let's sit down and have a positive conversation. But over the years, I have built up this, I don't even know what you want to call it, this perspective in my head, or this habit of knowing that the things I want to avoid are always, they end up the best.
Yep.
Right. So every time I get into a scenario where like, I really don't want to do that, maybe I should just send an email that says, hey, something came up, I can't do it. But you do it anyway. And the end result is better than it would have been had you not. Right. So I've sort of built up that habit, right, of, hey, every time something comes up that you want to avoid, you lean in
Yeah.
instead. And now the end result is 10 times better than you possibly could have imagined. And credit to you, this conversation is another example of that, right? I am in such a better mood and have such a better positive outlook for the remainder of my day because I leaned into this conversation. But A, definitely thank you for that. But B, I think it goes back to the point we talked about now a multitude of times. If there's a situation that you want to run and hide from, yeah, it's going to suck. Lean in. The end result will be better.
Right, right. I also find it's so great to do these things that, I mean, obviously this was supposed to be a nice engagement too, but you're going to have a hard conversation with someone. Oh man, getting it over with is so good. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I mean, it's just even stuff that is supposed to be bad, and it's going to be a little awkward. Go for it. Go for it right away. I had someone send me a real nasty email last week, and I could have hemmed and hawed or whatever. I instantly hit FaceTime. I was like, okay, let's talk. And that coward didn't answer. but that's, I feel like, okay, let's go. Let's have a civil
Right.
discussion about whatever it is, and then get it in my rear view mirror. Putting off an uncomfortable conversation or whatever, oh, that is toxic. That's really hard. But going straight for it, yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a bull in the china shop. I think my advice on perspective and so forth is valuable and valid. I think I'm right. I think I'm right on all that stuff. Joy is better than
I'll
sorrow
co-sign it.
and
Yeah.
agony. But I think you got to address things right away.
Yes.
That keeps me in a better headspace, because letting things just sit and ferment and rot on your mind. Ugh. So FaceTime. And I think any uncomfortable conversation should be done as close to in person if possible. So if you can actually meet in person, great. If not, FaceTime's got to be the next choice, right? And then, of
Yeah.
course, audio after that. Nothing via text. If it's ugly, it's got to be done with our mouths, right? Mouths and ears.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I think you lose a lot of emotion and context in text that could be very misinterpreted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also really strongly agree that you have to lead in and just do the thing right away. Because
Hmm.
otherwise, you sit there and you imagine these scenarios that almost never come true,
That's right.
or you create these perspectives of, oh, they must have said this because of X, Y, and Z. Most of the time, it has literally nothing to do with you. It's
That's
just
right.
something that they're going through. Whether you were just the outlet, you were the pressure relief valve where they just exploded onto you.
Hmm.
And I think when you approach those conversations, A, upfront, and B, with a little bit of grace, which I
Yeah.
think is a really important part, where you say, hey, this is the way you feel. Cool. Let's talk about it. I'm willing to not be offended, but I'm willing to listen to you. Let's talk through it
Yep.
and just hear each other. I think when you have the space and grace to listen to each other as humans who are all struggling with crap,
Yeah.
it creates this environment where you can both move forward positively. I love that.
Yeah. You know what? When it comes to people giving them grace too, sometimes I or not something frequently, I will put someone I love deeply in the place of someone who's maybe not acting their best, right? Whether it's a service provider who's a teenager, I think, okay, well, maybe he's like my son's age. Maybe something went wrong, whatever. I try to give them grace, and even though I do expect quality service and smiles,
Right.
I try to be very forgiving. And I also try to give as many positive Google or Yelp reviews as possible. I want people to go and see my name and say, wow, she love, praise, praise, praise. And if somebody does something so egregious that I have to write a 1-star review, people will take it seriously, right? But I
Right.
much rather praise than complain. I think the whole world needs to kind of switch to that. Like, people are quick to complain, golly. And how meaningful is it for the waiter to get that 5-star? I came to your restaurant, I keep coming because Susie always gives me the best service and takes great care of us. You're probably all of a sudden saying, okay, Susie's a valuable employee, I need to keep her. The
Right.
wonderful people at the gas stations I frequent for Diet Coke, I always send them rave reviews. And you could do so much good for people in that way. And then on the rare occasion you have to speak up about a bad situation. Okay, fine. Then people know that it was serious and it should be considered, right?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think the thing too to highlight that is like when you talked about when you go in for French fries and the person doesn't say hello, even for you to still show up there with grace and joy and
Hmm.
give them still that same level, you could very easily match their energy and just be
Right.
miserable back to them, right? But that wouldn't solve anything. But when you still
Right.
go there and you still give them the same level of joy that
Yeah.
they didn't even give to you first,
Yeah.
you could be the one that changes the tide for them, and you could flip that switch where now they're able to say, oh, hey, she saw me as a person. I'm not just a robot handing her a bag of fries.
Yeah.
This is a person, right? I think about that all the time. Like when you go through a drive through, most people never stop to know the name of the person who's handing them their food. They're
Yes.
not a person. They're just a robot or a faceless
Hmm.
humanoid who's giving them food or taking their credit card.
Yeah.
We don't consider the fact that those are real people, right? Which sounds crazy to say,
Right.
but how often do you go through your day and not think about the real people that you meet and the real lives that they have to go home to?
Yeah.
We just kind of do our 30 seconds of interaction and then boom, we're on our way.
Right. Can you imagine if everybody was filled with pleases and thank you? So I'm in the South, and when one of the telltale signs that I've come home, I get off the airport and again, I'm going to get the Diet Coke. I'm really not that much of a Diet Coke junkie. Like one good sized Diet Coke a day, and it's normally decaf. Anyhow, when the cashier, when she calls me sugar or baby, I feel like, oh, I am home. I go to California, nobody calls me honey ever, which I think is a travesty. So, this kind of Southern culture, which is so polite and courteous, if everybody, I can't fix the rest of the world. We're Americans. Perhaps Americans alone can start please and thank you and sir and ma'am and at whatever age you are. And just nice. I always try to, uh, I'm a complimenter. It's just who I am, and fine. Maybe it's nerdy, but I'll find something genuine. I love your fingernails. Your hair looks great, and just to try to give people a little boost. It's nice to be nice,
Yeah.
and you're right. I think hopefully it is contagious courtesy and friendliness, and also for the most part, I would say that the great majority of people are lovely. I do. I travel everywhere, and I rarely meet a real jerk. When I was sick and I was obvious, so I still don't, I don't wear ribbons. I'm not that girl. I'm not wearing the breast cancer warrior shirt. It's not my cup of tea. But I would show up bald and gray, and people knew, and they were so nice to me. Golly. I mean, people are still nice to me, and I don't look sick because I'm not, but people just went out of their way to carry my luggage, put my luggage in the overhead bin, or I mean, whatever it was just such kindness out of my peers in the sky, right? And people were just always like, "I'm rooting for you," they would say, or they give me things, and it's just we do have such a wonderful country, and yeah, we're very blessed, very blessed.
Yeah. It makes me think about two things. One is that we don't tell those stories enough.
Right?
Right? The public perception is all this hate and negativity and drama. And imagine if the public conversation was more about how good humans really are, because there is so much of this happening. It just doesn't get the clicks and the publicity. So we just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think the other part too is how beautiful is it that these people are willing to do that? Wouldn't it be even better if we kept that same energy all the time?
Yeah.
Right? Where it wasn't just, hey, I feel bad for that person. Let me go make that effort or say the nice thing.
Hmm.
But if we showed up and offered that just because, right? Not conditionally.
So it's funny as I'm still whatever I was at 6, I am. And my mother used to scold me. She would say, "Stop saying hi to everybody. You're going to get yourself killed." And so I walk around, I still do hi, hi, hi. And with this shit eating grin on my face, right? It's who I am. But yeah, I got scolded so much as a kid. And now I kind of feel like, Mom, you know what? I've made a profession out of being nice to people. On race day, sometimes a race organization give me 30,000 athletes. I probably hug good 30% of them, right? I am
That's
out
awesome.
there. I treat them like they're my own. Like I know these people, and it's the high fives and the sweetness. And there's a real connection. I just, yeah, I do love people, and I crave that connection, which is good and bad. The COVID thing really tortured me because I needed my people, and I couldn't
Right.
have them. It was tough, but for the most part, just being at the gym or the grocery store or whatever it is, I love people, and I will continue to say hi. And my mom will still yell at me. She's alive and kicking, and I'm still getting scolded for it, but I will not comply. Will not give up my smiles and
Good.
my hellos, because friendly rules my world, right?
Yeah. Good. Well, please don't give that up because the world needs more of it. So thank you. And again, just want to give you a incredible honor. This conversation has been amazing. It has been the highlight of my day thus far. So
No.
thank you for that. And thank you for being you and for living out loud and not being afraid to be noisy and fun and unique and you and authentic. And please don't stop because the world needs more of it.